I'd like to call our regular meeting of City Council to order for Monday, May 13th. Our first order of business this morning is our delegations. Our first delegation this morning is Randy Carlstad and Lorraine Lawrence from the Dawson Creek Sons of Norway Lodge in attendance for our Norwegian Constitution Day proclamation. So Lorraine and Randy, if you'd like to come up, we'll read this off for you. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Come.
I know, come for a hug.
Yeah, come.
Randy's going to stand here.
Good morning,
Thank
Randy.
you so much, Randy.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Come on in, Natalia. My little neighbor girl. Nice to see you.
Stand by, Dale.
Okay.
Yes, come
We don't
stand
have a flag.
Okay.
We'll make sure we have the flag the right way.
So,
I'll read the proclamation off for you, and then the floor will be yours.
oh, okay.
Awesome. Whereas Norwegian Constitution Day is the National Day of Norway and is an official national holiday observed on May 17th each year. And whereas among Norwegians, the day is referred to simply as Sintand Mai a Sintand Mai, both meaning May 17th. And whereas this is a day on which celebrations mark the signing of the Norwegian Constitution in Eidsvoll, and whereas on May 17th, Norwegian Canadians will express their appreciation and pride for their heritage through observance of Norway's Constitution Day. Now, therefore, I do hereby proclaim May 17th, 2019 to be Norwegian Constitution Day in Dawson Creek.
We're going to hold the flag.
Let's see what the flag will look like.
Now, hopefully we get it up straight here and not upside down. Or, there we go.
Are we right?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, there we go.
Right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet over here, no?
Yeah.
Put it this way,
Huh?
because this is the front here.
The
Okay.
front?
Yeah,
So-
this is the back side.
Thank you, Mayor Bumstead.
It's faded
And
out, it's faded out, Brandon.
oh, it's the.
Yeah,
There we go.
that's better.
That's a little
That's
brighter.
better.
There we go. Better bright side out here. So thank you so much. Just a little history about it. The May 17th. It's pronounced De 17 Mai.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll work on that.
Yeah, you have to work on your. But it's a huge holiday in Norway. Lots of parades, traditional costumes, and foods. It was the year in 1814 when Norway got its first constitution, and they became independent from Denmark at the time and got their own monarch. So it's a pretty big deal. They say it's bigger than the 4th of July is in the USA.
Wow.
So it's, if you've ever been there and have in Oslo on May 17th, it's amazing. It's just lots of things going on.
Oh,
It's a lot
great.
of fun. So we're going to have on 17th of May. This is going to fly all week, and we really appreciate that. And then at Peace Park, and then on Friday at 3 o'clock we're having some refreshments and then a dinner. It starts at 5 o'clock, and then in honor of May 17th.
Awesome.
So yeah,
Great.
but we thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming in this morning. It's
Yeah.
really good to have you guys
Yeah,
here,
thank you.
as always.
Yeah.
And there's your proclamation.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll make sure to get that flying at the
Yeah.
Peace Park.
I very much appreciate that.
Thank
for
you.
letting us fly
Yeah.
every year. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're done? Yeah.
Our next delegation is Ken Watson from Northeast BC Crime Stoppers and Constable Jamie Fouquier from in attendance regarding National Police Week and Crime Stoppers Week proclamation. So you can come on up and we'll. Good morning, Jamie. Good to see you. Welcome. Welcome. Ken, welcome. Thanks for coming in this morning, as always. Whereas National Police Week began in 1970 as a way for police to connect with their communities and increase the awareness about the services they provide. And whereas the members of the RCMP of the City of Dawson Creek play an important role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of our community. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the problems, duties and responsibilities of their police department, and that members of our department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, protecting them against violence or disorder, and protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression and intimidation. And whereas our police department has grown to be a modern and scientific law enforcement agency which unceasingly provides a vital public service, now therefore I do hereby proclaim the week of May 13th to 17th, 2019 as National Police Week in Dawson Creek. I read the wrong one. I did them two, don't I? Two at a time. I was worried there for a second. And our Crime Stoppers Week as well. Whereas anonymous tips are being handled by one Crime Stopper society covering the whole northeast corner of British Columbia. And whereas the society accepts anonymous tips via phone, through the web, or by text messages, commits to keeping confidentiality for individuals, and partners with the media and police as part of the provincial, national, and international organization to help make communities a safer place to live. And whereas Northeast BC Crime Stoppers is part of a new initiative by Global BC's news channel, which is focused on airing information about unsolved crimes or incidents in the hopes of generating new information. And whereas on behalf of the citizens of Northeast BC who wish to live in a safe community and who wish to acknowledge that Crime Stoppers has been operating in this area since 1989, now therefore I do hereby proclaim the week of May 27th to 31st, 2019 as Crime Stoppers Week in Dawson Creek. Ken? Thank you. And Jamie? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if I could just say a couple of words quickly. We're introducing a new slogan. You'll see it in the local print media over the next week or so. Say it here. Are you aware of a crime that's been committed? You know who's responsible. If you do, then say it here. You can reach us at 1-800-222-8477 or by submitting a tip through the web or on the mobile devices at www.crimestoppers.nedbc.ca. Then click on the link, submit a tip. Anonymity is guaranteed, subject to a couple of provisos you'll see in the print media. And my only other thing I would like to do is invite everybody to our Crime Stoppers fundraiser golf tournament. It's our one fundraiser every year at Lone Wolf in Taylor on May 31st, which is Friday. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it?
That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Our next delegation weren't able to be here this morning. We have our members of the Rotary Club who are here this morning, Joe Judge, Dale Campbell, Rick Hackworth, and Dennis Armitage, to kind of give council a little bit of a presentation update on the Dawson Creek Walking Trail. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning,
Dennis.
Dale, councilors.
Rick. Dale.
Yeah, we've got all kinds of good things here. So, really what we'd like to do this morning is just discuss the walking
Thanks.
trail. And as we all know, the walking trail is from east of 8th Street over to Tubby's. But in particular, there's a section of the walking trail that has really become a concern and has significant deterioration. And that's between 15th Street and 17th. And there's a little portion there that's about maybe 60 meters, as you can see in the photograph there, that has really deteriorated. So that little strip you see in the middle there is only about this wide, and it falls off this way on either side. And so we've seen people, because it's near where we live, so we take our grandkids walking and biking through there, and we see people with strollers pushing, and they're trying to balance, and kids learning to ride bikes. It's a bit of a, I don't know if it's a danger or a safety hazard, but it's a bit of an issue. And I guess we're just wondering what city has in plans, if any, to look after that type of thing with the walking trail. Just so it's a bit of a discussion, and I don't know if you know what's on the agenda for that, or.
So absolutely, I don't think council has had any discussions in capital at this point about the long-term capital improvements to the walking trail. And Duncan?
Yes, so through your worship, I don't believe we have anything slated in the 5-year plan for the walking trail at this time, and maybe I'd ask Peter, if he's familiar with that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, not that we're aware of. We have nothing in the walking trail. We've focused in other areas of paving program, but not on that trail.
Okay. Councillor Jabecka?
I've had a bit of discussion with different staff, and one of the issues with the walking trail is the standards aren't up to city standards. When it was installed by volunteers, and it was paved by Rotary. So if the city does anything, it'll be improved to the point where it's engineered and excavated like a street, similar to a street with a wider format, and so it's not cheap. So it might be something that Rotary could look at doing a patch job on that.
So how
Because-
does that work when it's within city property? Like, can Rotary do that? Is that something that we have to seek permission to do, or what's the format for a Rotary? Because like I said, it's about 60 meters or thereabouts, and not saying that we couldn't find ways of repairing that. It's a bit of a safety concern, so I think it needs to be looked at.
Duncan?
So through your worship, there's been many partnerships, in particular with Rotary. There was the bridge over by the cemetery that Rotary worked on, right? The Seacan Bridge. And I believe, as Councillor Javakoff noted, this trail, if not all of it, was done by Rotary and was coordinated. So there are partnership opportunities if that's something that the club is looking for and council is looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if the Rotary Club, if you guys have some interest in making some project of this, we'd be happy to chat with you about it.
And perhaps have some support from the city, if possible.
So I guess, so that's part of this conversation. It's not in our capital budget, so we had a really tight, obviously the budget this year, everybody watched.
No, I understand that.
Right.
But,
So, but if you guys have a project and you want to talk about it, then absolutely, we'd be happy to do that. Councillor Jabecka?
So this trail was actually promoted by Rotary, by Rotarian. Fran Shields chaired a committee, a beautification committee, and I went to the committee meeting. I was president at the time of Rotary, and we went into a joint venture with the South Beach Oilmans. South Beach Oilmans did most of the construction work, and Rotary paved it. And it's one of those gifts that we, as nonprofit organizations, give to the city. And from the city's perspective, it's a gift that keeps on taking because it requires maintenance. So it gets to the point where, you know, we're in a situation where we are today. So I think, you know, as volunteers, as community groups, that's the short-term fix. The long-term, we'll get engineers, we'll do a engineered design, we'll get heavy equipment in there and do excavations, and so if you project that into when it might happen,
And when?
it could be a long, long time with other priorities.
Councillor Luckstrom?
I guess, thanks, Your Worship, and speaking to the issue of this, first of all, thanks to the Rotary and the Oilmans for doing this. It's an amazing part of our city when you can go from one end to the other. I know there's always opportunity to look at expanding it. I would like to suggest that, or make a motion, Your Worship, that we ask our administration.
We'll bring it back under mayor's business.
Okay, because this is, if we have some safety issues there, we have to correct them. I understand what you're saying, Paul, about, but if we can do this in cooperation with both Rotary and the Oilmans possibly, or at least initiate that discussion on how we look at not just this section, but the ongoing issue of this, because it's not going to be the only time we face this. Let's find a path forward, so a path forward is safe. To make this work, this is an amazing opportunity for our city. It is well used, and we need to find a way to keep this going. I think the community would jump behind whatever we need to do. If it's doing fundraisers, if it's doing something like that, but to work with your organization.
Yeah, it is very well used by the community, absolutely it is. And just for your information too, Rotary is prepared to help and support the city or whatever we can do to make sure that we get this looked at, and in particular this location. And you're correct, we have considered the concept of ongoing maintenance because there's cracks that happen. I mean, we live in the north and we know all about that with potholes, right? And how that works. So we do know that's something. But I like the concept of where it's going, that maybe we'll just discuss with the city, Duncan or whomever,
Sure.
and see where we can go with that in a partnership. And if we can have we might have to work out something with the city, but I'm sure we can do something.
I absolutely would be happy to join in on that with Duncan and bring it back to council and represent that on behalf of the various organizations and see what we can find. Our master transportation plan is absolutely peppered with walking trails, and this is, as Councillor Lekstrom and Javetkov said, this is a key component of our infrastructure now, I believe, and we need to have that discussion. So welcome it. We welcome it.
Yeah, okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time. And so what do we do going forward?
So if you guys reach out to Duncan and we'll
Okay.
coordinate it and we'll get together with you as soon as we can.
And we'll see what we can do. Good. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
And I would encourage everybody to take a walk, especially along that stretch.
We will.
Been there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3, we have our new councillor business, Councillor Javetkov.
So, I think it was last year we commissioned a report on the Michael subdivision to identify all the work that's required with a view to eventually getting it to curb and gutter and paved streets. So there is a report. I've talked to Duncan and Kevin, and it is phased. There's phased costs to get it implemented, and I would like to have that report to look at so that we can try and plan some of the work into future budgets, starting with subsurface. And we've got 115th Avenue right now as access to the RV dump area and the truck waste dump. And you can see already that 115th with that truck traffic is starting to break up, just like a bush road. So, you know, it's something that I think we need to be looking at for future budgets, and I'd like to get that report with the phased costs so that we can try and implement some of the work. So I move to have that administration provide a summary of the Michael subdivision report to Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Parslow, discussion. Councillor Lekstrom.
Just in speaking to this motion, usually we will go through a 5-year capital, we'll talk about our capital each year, where this goes. Is there an indication, Paul, and I guess I would ask you, that this would put this as a priority on that? Because as much as I would like to see this done, I think we have far more priorities out there with our deteriorating infrastructure that's already, a concern than moving on this right now. So I'm just looking to see, I have no problem going through the report, but if the intent is to put it up, the list up here, then I would have concerns, and we need a far broader conversation on that issue, I think.
Well, this motion is to get the information.
Which we have already,
There's no, we want to get the information so we can actually discuss it. So when it comes to setting priorities, then we can discuss our individual priorities, when we're talking budget. But we need the information. Because right now the number is 24 million, and if we put that out, it's alarming.
Yes, very.
So if we have the report and we have the phased costs, then we can talk about it, knowing what's going on. So the budgeting process is separate. This is a report that will give us information that we can use.
If I could
Go ahead.
fall through maybe to administration. This report is completed now, is it not, though, and available?
Duncan?
So through your worship, yes, this report we received in November, so it wasn't included in the 5-year, it hasn't been included in the 5-year, and it wasn't included in 2019 projects. So we do have our costs. It is a total of Class B estimate at 26 million. The utility component, which we would do first, the underground work, is about 9.6, and then above ground at 16 million. This is something, typically we have pavement conditions reports, and we have a number of different reports, and they're usually attached as things get added into the budget. We can definitely, if council wishes, present this information as a committee of the whole or something like that.
Councillor Javeco?
Yeah, normally, I mean, these reports were, put on the website or someplace where we could access them. I don't know, what the process or is changed, but, it's information that we need to be able to look at actually participating in a budgeting exercise.
Duncan, the subsurface water, sewer and drainage, does that fall within direct into infrastructure, or does that flow through to the water sewer utility?
Through your worship, I believe it's in general. I'll look at Devon. All your drainage is just general right now. It's not water and sewer above ground? General. So paving, and it's in the same lump as those areas.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Javeco?
So is there any sewer, I think there's sewer and water in this as well. So is that in general as well?
Sewer and water, so all of the utilities in the 9 million that I've identified as that underground work would come out of water and sewer, correct?
I believe so. There is some storm work as well that needs to be done.
There is some storm outfall, etc., yeah.
It's not broken out too heavily yet.
Yeah, so there's about $9 million. Some of that is above ground, but a majority of it is underground.
So it's sewer and water.
Sewer and water, and then there is some drainage as well, so.
Good. Okay, thank you. Further discussion on the motion that we have administration bring this report back for council for information? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Javeco? No. Councillor Business, Councillor Earl, and then Councillor Parsel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of the community organizations and nonprofits that came out this Saturday to participate in the community cleanup here in Dawson Creek. As the council's liaison to that, it was very, very heartening to see just the myriad of the best and brightest our community has to offer come out to help keep it beautiful just in time for summer, and I want to congratulate them for their good work and thank them once again.
Thank you. Thank you for attending. Appreciate it. Councillor Parsel?
Yes, Councillor Javatkov's item just spawned something in my mind. Many of us are very busy and planning things into the fall, so I'm kind of curious when Council will see the budget schedule for 2020, given that we're bringing it forward, so that, usually when we do have a schedule of anticipated meetings, and I'm kind of wondering when we would see that so we can complete at least my calendar for the fall. And associated with that, of course, is when we're going to be dealing with meeting our budget targets, which are all part of that, and staff will need some lead time to get any information that we so request. So I'm just kind of curious when we might get that schedule.
Duncan?
So through your worship, I'll start and then Flavia can jump in, but right now working on targets and timelines, and we've had some healthy discussion on that. Next step would be providing a report to council with those targets and timelines to ensure that's the direction moving forward, and then possibly getting into some strategies as far as the budget schedule and that budget component. I believe Flavia, August was something you had in mind for your first budget?
Yeah, the expectation is by August to start to discuss about assumption, but we can put a schedule by the end of June, because I'm still working on release this 2019, but I do have in mind to try to anticipate at least 2 months of budget discussion, so that's the idea.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Kemp?
Last week I had the opportunity to attend the McHappy Day at McDonald's. I worked at the drive-thru, so they had raised $5,399 and it's split between the Ronald McDonald House as well as the local CDC here. So it was a good event, and they raised a lot of money, so that was good. I just want to mention I still keep meeting with the Youth Advisory Committee at South Peace. Last week we had invited Mark Rogers. He came and just kind of updated the group on what he's been doing since stepping away from council. So,
Good.
yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Anything further? Thank you. We'll move then to item 4, minutes, then minutes of our regular meeting of council for April 29th for adoption. Councillor Parslow, seconded. Councillor Duekoff. Any errors or omissions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 4.2, we have our minutes of our special meeting of council of May 1st for adoption. Councillor Lexstrom, Councillor Kemp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And 4.3, we have the minutes of our special meeting of council of May 3rd for adoption. Councillor Parslow, second. Councillor Lexstrom. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any business arising out of any of the minutes for anybody? Thank you. 5.1, we have Duncan.
So, through your worship, we've had a lot of discussion throughout the budget process regarding including a motion within our submission to the province regarding the financial plan. And I even indicated at the April meeting that we would just grab that motion and put it into the email because there wasn't a space available within the actual report. I made a mistake. We don't actually have a motion, so I thought I would come back and request that motion so we could include it in the financial plan email and report.
Perfect. So, Councillor Parslow, second. Councillor Kemp. Discussion?
It's good to learn that the CAO is fallible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So is there some specific language or a motion council would like included? I know we had a lot of discussion, but we don't actually have a motion.
So, do you have any suggestions in terms of what you'd like to see included in it? Councillor Lexstrom, you had some input in that.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think it's going to be important in our email or letter to the minister that we reflect that it is our intent to move the fair share revenue now in operations, or the vast majority of it, out of operations and put it back to capital expenditures. And I think we did settle on a percentage, and I'm using my memory here, I think it was 85 to 90%, was it not?
So I think
we're going to use for capital versus operations.
I think our target was, and I thought it was 85% over 7 years.
Yeah, so we haven't locked anything down through a motion or through council yet. We've had a lot of healthy discussion about it. We could include something like that, or we could leave it generic for now.
Okay, Councillor Lexington.
My preference is to lock it down.
Okay.
I think it's very important that we do that. I think we had discussions right now. Our debt repayment is about 2.34 million, I think, under the operating side. It was always my intent that, for myself, it would be acceptable to use fair share revenue to pay your debt payment, but the rest should be in the capital side. I think as our debt fluctuates, I'm hesitant to put a direct number, so the percentage anywhere between 2.5 probably and $3 million, and I thought we had that discussion. I thought we'd lock that down, but memory will serve us if we could work on that, but that would be what I would like reflected as council's direction in that.
Okay. I think that's a real strong message that we are, this is the number one strategic priority that this council has set. So, the wording, do you have?
Well, can I
go ahead.
Just,
yep.
I mean, Councillor Edstrom, as he said, I mean, I have nothing to add to that. But for help, maybe, I thought when we had our planning session that we had a 7-year spread and we had percentages that we were heading to. I thought that substantive, quantifiable information was going to be part of what was going to be communicated.
Yep, and this will be an opportunity to ratify that in a meeting and make sure that is agreed upon majority.
So that's what I was.
Okay, so
So does that give you enough, Duncan?
Yes, so through your worship right now I have that, council's intent is to move fair share revenue from operating back to capital at about an 80 to 85% component to capital. the 15% to operating over approximately a 7-year time frame. So if we can make that as a motion, I think we could attach that directly into that,
Okay.
if that's council's will.
Councillor Javetkov?
Yeah, I guess that suits me. If what Charlie was talking about, that phasing in, we were talking about front-loading it, and I never did hear what the actual percentages were going to be year over year. I think that was left to administration to come up with a recommendation. But if it's a generic 85% over 7 years, I guess that's...
Yeah, that would work. And
Okay.
I would say we could even put the words at a minimum, you know.
Okay.
It allows us flexibility. We want to be tied to the direction that we've set as a council, that we are going to remove fair share funding from operating, other than really we talked about the debt repayment. And if we can continue and even get the debt repayment out because we're doing things, that's an added bonus for us. So I just don't want to tie our hands with the letter we send.
Sure.
But the intent, I think, is going to be very important if they see that.
And I certainly agree. I think that aspirational target the council set is a really important message for us to send to folks that we are serious about this.
Good.
So I made the motion, but all that was implicit, and I thought we had it.
Have you got, is that enough for you,
I
Duncan,
remember
Brenda?
you raised the issue at that meeting, and
Yeah.
I thought that was the framework
Sure.
that we're following.
Mhm.
So I'm quite willing to take it.
Well, and I think
Got a motion.
administration have heard the discussion, they've got the motion, they'll bring the letter back.
Brenda, you're good?
Yeah, as long as you're clear on the...
I'm very clear.
Crystal clear.
Crystal clear. Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Duncan. Correspondence, item 6.1, we have a letter from Connie Patterson requesting a letter of support for a grant application for NDIT. Councillor Javetkov?
I'll move that we provide letter of support.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Earl. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 6.2, we have a letter from Sylvia Siemens, a resident of Dawson Creek, regarding concerns with the Dawson Creek Animal Responsibility Bylaw. Duncan, do you want to speak to this briefly?
Sure. So through your worship, the concern that's raised in the letter, as you've all probably read, is our current practice of having the ability to remove a cat at large off of private property. We are updating our bylaw, animal responsibility bylaw right now. There is an opportunity, if council likes this to be considered under that bylaw, that this could be referred to staff as we do update that bylaw, but really the concern is, the removal of cats, I believe, at large, was the wording in the letter.
Councillor Javetkov and Councillor Lexman?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we refer this to that bylaw.
Okay. For a report to come back to council at that time. Administration will report it back to council.
We'll include it as part of the discussion,
Yeah, good. Councillor, second? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parslow. Discussion, Councillor Lexman?
Just a quick question, and it would fall on page 9, just before her signature, the third paragraph up. It says, "The position being taken by the city staff that I've spoken with and the SPCA staff appears to be that it does not matter that no other contravention of the bylaw has occurred, and simply being uncontained or unfenced property." So whether you're on private property or not, they could go in. There's a misinterpretation there. I think your dog can run, your cat can run. If it doesn't leave your private property, you don't need a fence, as I read the bylaw. So is there a misunderstanding, or has somebody put something forward that seems out of context there?
So through your worship, and it's in this letter on the second page of the letter, an animal control officer may seize and impound any dog or cat on unfenced land and not securely contained. So I believe our practice has been, in some cases, if there's an animal loose on its own land, we have seized and impound. And I'd ask Peter, and I know Wendy is here, but that would require council's approval if you wanted to hear the SPCA's position on that.
But that is the wording that we enforce. If a cat or an animal is at large, unfenced, and a private property, they can go in and seize it. So
Well, that makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
If I'm on my private property and it's not causing any problem whatsoever. So I'm going to understand the motion is to refer this to our bylaw to get that corrected.
We're going to bring it back for council to have that direction. Duncan?
So I wouldn't say corrected, but it'll be included,
Well,
and you'll have the opportunity
For
to
council
correct that if you like.
Council to have that discussion.
Yes.
Council set that direction, or the direction. Go ahead. Yeah.
With the SPCA here, would it be appropriate to hear just what, so when it does come back, we have that knowledge that in our discussion? Is there, maybe there's an issue I'm missing on this, and I just want to make sure we have everything.
But, so absolutely, if we have a unanimous consent of council, we can have Wendy speak. So moved by Councillor Kemp, seconded by Councillor Parslow. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. That's why I'm here. I figured you'd have questions.
Oh, good. Good morning, Wendy.
Good morning. So the concern that she's presented the bylaw is under 8.1 of the bylaw, and it's because it doesn't coordinate with 5.3 of the bylaw, which states that a dog must be kept on your own property by keeping it in a fenced area or inside or in a fenced area capable of preventing the animal from leaving the property. When we redid the bylaw in 2015, unfortunately adding cat to that, to 5.3 wasn't added. It was just an error, an omission that occurred at that time. So how it works, how the enforcement works right now is if we have an animal on a property that is not contained, so loose in your front yard, and there's nobody home. So first thing we do is run the property to see if there's any animals licensed on the property. If there's no animals licensed on that property, that animal's considered at large automatically because we don't have any animals considered to be present on that property. If we do have an owner for that property, we first of all knock on the door and talk to them, try to ensure that the animal is contained. If there's nobody home, we do call the owner if we have the information and talk to the person. The idea is to prevent the animal from leaving the property. If an animal's just loose on your front yard, there's no way for that animal to be contained if you're not present. So this is occurring when there's an animal loose, nobody's around to contain that animal. So that's where the bylaw comes in play.
Okay. Questions? Councillor Javetkov?
I don't know, reading through the letter, it implies that, this individual has a cat that doesn't leave the property, and fences don't matter to a cat. But if a cat is well-trained or old or whatever, and it's not likely going to leave the property, I guess even if it is likely, once it leaves the property, then it's running at large. But to have an animal, your animal, on your property, I don't consider that at large. And I'm sure there's a lot of other issues that need to be dealt with that are priority, where there are dogs and cats that are at large, and I know specifically of a number of them. We should be focusing on those kind of issues rather than going onto somebody's private property, where their animal is in their yard and starting to hassle them or, taking their animal. I don't agree with, and my intention with this motion was to forward it to correct this problem.
Okay.
The request was to correct the problem so that the dog catcher can't come onto her land and take her cat. That cat, who knows what, some cats do stay on their land. I don't know much about them because I'm not a cat person, but...
Well, if we have a person who can train cats to stay on their land, I would recommend that they go into business in the city of Dawson Creek. They would make a lot of money. Science studies indicate that cats claim a property 3 to 5 houses around their current property. And they typically do their marking and their damage to property in the 3 to 5 houses surrounding their own property. That's what studies have indicated. So in this particular case, we were actually responding to a cat complaint. So cat at large complaint. We had cats in the neighborhood causing mischief in the neighborhood and did notice a cat on this person's front lawn. We didn't pick up this person's cat. We just simply talked to this person and said, could you please ensure that your cat is contained properly to ensure that it doesn't leave your property causing an issue. We did have a challenge actually last year that came up with a person who just had their cat. They claimed that their cat never left their property, and the cat was fatally injured on their front step. And, if the cat had been contained in a fenced area or inside their home, then we wouldn't have had that concern come up. Catios are popping up all over the city. Building a fence to keep your cat in your own yard is actually much cheaper than building a fence to keep your dog in your own yard. You can put in catios very easily. We've got lots of catio plans, lots of support for cat owners to do that, as well as support for behavioral issues, taking in outdoor cats and keeping them inside. So there's a lot that we're doing to ensure that cats aren't leaving people's property because they are causing damage on neighboring properties.
Councillor Earl and Councillor Jack.
Just a couple points, Your Worship, through to Wendy, and thank you for having the foresight to come in and see us today. So firstly, similar to other bylaws, this is primarily complaint driven, I take it, or is it something you guys proactively
It is
police
primarily
for?
complaint driven, so we
Okay.
attend areas as complaints come in. We do patrol areas, but we're busy enough that it's primarily
And
complaint
with
driven.
respect to comparatives, as far as you're aware, is this kind of a standard policy in municipalities, or are we an exception in how we deal with it?
We're in a unique situation because we're one of the few communities in British Columbia that has a cat bylaw, that
Yeah.
has done the work we have and are proactively dealing with it. And it's amazing to me that the complaints we get about cats are here versus the feral cats and all of that stuff that once littered our community. 1% of the cats that were turned into the SPCA last year were returned to their owners. Today, I think last year there were 50%.
Yes,
As a
just under
result
50%.
of the spay and neuter program, the tattooing, the identification of cats. We're head and shoulders above most communities that are having major issues with cats. Anyway, Councillor Javeco.
So I think the intent when we dealt with this cat bylaw originally was that if a person had a problem, there would be a trap set and the cat would be caught. To assume that somebody's cat is the one that's going in there, that's a big assumption. And to go and say, well, this person complained, a cat has damaged their flower bed, so we're going to go and assume it's this cat, is a stretch to me.
Well,
So
we're not doing
I
that.
would just reiterate that I think the right way to do it is to set a trap and catch the cat that is actually doing the damage. Now, I don't assume that every cat in the world runs around. That's a big assumption to me.
Well, I can tell you from my experience with the BCSBC that if you open your front door and let your cat out, then the likelihood of it leaving your property is incredibly high. No different, honestly, than if somebody let their dog out their front door without being out there. Just open your door, let your dog out. Chances are your dog's going to be on your neighbor's property very quickly. So the idea...
Catch them there.
The purpose of the bylaw, but we're not taking animals. This isn't something we're actually doing. We didn't take this person's animal, and that's not something we actively do. We have a full enough shelter without having to go out and find animals to bring into it. So this is just, when we have a cat complaint, we simply talk to the cat owners in the area, letting them know that there's a complaint and asking them to keep their cats at home. The bylaw is there. That portion of the bylaw is only enforced if we have no way to contain that animal. So we're showing up at somebody's house, their dog or cat is in their front yard, there's nobody home, we can't reach an owner, we can't in good faith to the community leave that animal just loose in the front lawn to wander off. We're here to protect the animal.
Councillor Lexstrom and Councillor Park.
Just a quick one, Wendy. First of all, thank you for giving us some information on this. And I want to make it clear, I'm not a big supporter of cats running at large. I don't like them in my gardens. I don't have a cat. So if you're going to have a pet, look after it. I'm good with that. I look forward to the discussion when this is brought forward.
Thank you.
Thanks for the information.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow.
So my understanding from what Wendy shared is that this bylaw is sort of, as all bylaws we seem to have, is complaint driven, but the expectation is people will supervise their animals appropriately, not just leave them in a uncontained area at the back of their property or wherever. That's my understanding, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that was the intention of the animal responsibility bylaw, to ensure that cat owners are held to an equal responsibility as dog owners.
Well, I'm not trying to put myself forward as a cat expert. I don't particularly like cats. However, even living in the country there, I have cats wandering in from who knows where. So it's a problem, and I don't like them wandering in at all because I have a hate for cats, I guess, in a sense. My wife loves them. I just like them.
The very positive, we don't have a cat problem anymore in this city. We don't have cats coming into the shelter, kittens of litters after litters. It's been that effective. The 50 or 60 grand we got from PetSmart to do the spay and neuter program has been amazing for our community in terms of the results that we've achieved as a result of that. So anyway, Councillor Kemp, then we're going to move on. We're not discussing.
Justin, you may not know this answer, but I was just curious about roughly how many cat complaints do you receive?
I would say cat complaints are at least 50% of our complaints, if not higher. Our cat-related complaints with cats damaging people's property, and the bylaw is intended to protect our taxpayers. You know, we shouldn't have to manage and fix our properties because your neighbor's cat is wrecking your property. The cat bylaw, I'm excited to do a report for you guys very soon in regards to our 2018 stats. The cat bylaws have been phenomenally successful. You know, I'm incredibly proud of our city. Our city won an award last year for their efforts, and they have been highly effective in altering our cat problems. We've had 2 litters of kittens come in from the city of Dawson Creek so far this year. That is absolutely amazing. So.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Council. Further discussion? I'm almost hesitant to use those words. So we're going to refer this to administration for the report to come back to Council for deliberation. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 6.3, we have a letter from Caitlin Treble, President of the Dawson Creek Minor Ball Association. Duncan, can you speak to this a little bit? You've had some...
Sure. So, through your worship, Shantae actually met with Caitlin Treble just to understand exactly what they're requesting and what part of the challenge is. It's a good problem. It seems they have more users than they have typically. They've got more kids signed up, so that's great. Unfortunately, they're unable to start at the kin fields earlier than 5:45 just with the schedules of the coaches, which pushes that time into the later evening, as mentioned in the letter, and creates a bit of a challenge as far as the light and etc. And so they're looking for use of the Frank Ross field and asking that the city maintain that field. That was one of the fields that wasn't overly utilized, and we were backing off on some of our maintenance as part of the parks program reductions, and it would be cut half as much, so maybe every 2 weeks. There's a couple moving pieces here. When Shantae met with Caitlin, she had mentioned, well, maybe their club could just cut the grass up there and kind of adopt that park and look after it. Also, Shantae hasn't yet started, but we'll be working with the schools as well. My understanding is they utilize these diamonds and these fields, and maybe there's an opportunity where they may be able to do some of this work as well. And now a lot of moving parts. However, that's kind of where we're at today, and really that parks program, we're just getting underway, and we're still trying to understand the full ramification of the changes.
Okay. So we will continue those discussions with Caitlin in identifying that facility for them, and if they want to adopt it, or we take it on as we can with our new curb, that's the direction we're going to move with them.
If that's council's will, yeah, I mean, we can do that.
Councillor Javetko?
So I'm just curious about Paul Loiselle ballpark, ballparks area. I think there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
Are they all fully occupied, or?
Yeah, my understanding is we sat down with Caitlin and kind of ran through all of the schedules, and really the biggest challenge, I think, is those start times and the availability of the volunteers, right? And so a lot of things don't get going till 5:30, 5:45. You know, after your hour and a bit, it starts pushing it into the evening. So we ran through those areas. Frank Ross was an area that they particularly were interested in, I think geographically, for most of the girls and the volunteers. But yeah, we ran through that schedule.
So maybe if we can direct administration to go back and work with Caitlin along with the school districts and look at options to be able to develop Frank Ross for their use. We're not going to take it on as part of our maintenance program now with the reduction we put into park. Councillor Lex?
Your worship, I mean, I agree with that, but it's my understanding that we weren't gonna vacate them completely, but like, as you said, it might be instead of every 10 days, it might be every 20 days when we cut based on what our availability
Yeah.
was. So what we're looking at doing is offsetting our contribution to that. Is that not where we're at?
That's definitely an option, and we'll sit down with them and try to figure that out.
Terrific, thank you.
So can we have that by way of direction to administration, and they'll work with the organization to develop that for Equal Frank Ross Park? Councillor Dubaka?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Kemp. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 6.4, we have a letter from Mike Hurley, Mayor of the City of Burnaby, regarding expanding investment opportunities. Councillor Parslow?
I'd like to move we receive it for information.
Thank you. Second to Councillor Kemp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 6.5, we have a letter from Mayor Bertrand from the District of Tumbler Ridge and Mayor Coutre from the Mayor of the District of Chatwin regarding the invitation to attend the Northeast BC Community Coal and Energy Forum September 11th in Tumbler Ridge. Councillor Blackstone?
I think at this point, your worship, we would receive for information on that. It's always a worthwhile forum. I've attended many times in the past, but I think as this comes forward, I believe our policy states that it would be, at that point, we would look at that.
Yep. Good. Second, Councillor Parslow. We also, I think, and I'll confirm this for later on, but I think we put some support into the coal forum as a result of the Southeast Economic Development, or the Peace River Economic Development Function. I think we supported that, the city did, so. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And 6.6, we have a letter from the Honourable Selena Robinson, Minister of Municipal Affairs, regarding affordable housing through building BC funds. Councillor Javetka?
Information.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Leckstrom. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 7.1, we have report 19057 from the Development Services Manager regarding our Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program. Duncan, do you want to speak to this to explain to Council?
Sure, through your worship. So it's a bit of a combination between Peter and Flavia on this report, and this is really trying to reflect some of the decisions that were made throughout the budget process. The city of Dawson Creek typically has been a level 4 signatory with the Climate Action Charter, and we have achieved carbon neutrality. There are 4 levels. This was introduced later into the program, is my understanding. And there is an opportunity through level 2, measuring GHG emissions, but not actually purchasing offsets, in which we are still eligible for the $111,000 grant for our activities in 2018. So we would continue to be a signatory just at a lower level, and we would receive the grant.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
So, in the recommendation, there's no mention of the second tier, that we move to the second tier. Is that intentional?
Duncan?
Through your worship, and I'll just ask Peter, I believe it's in the attached actual report that we are approving as presented. Is that correct, Peter?
It's in the survey.
In the survey that's attached that you're approving as presented. All of that information is in there.
I see. So it's okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So I'd like to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Kemp. Discussion?
Well, I must admit that when I read this, I had to read it a second time because this was a bit of a paradigm shift, that this eligibility was still available at the Category 2 level.
No.
I don't wish to say any more.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you for the report, by the way.
7.2, we have report 19080 from the corporate officer regarding our 2019 policy review. Councillor Javetka.
Move that report number 19-080 from the corporate officer read 2019 policy review be received for discussion. Further, that the proposed policy amendments be dealt with individually. If the motion is passed, the 3, I guess I don't have to read that part, eh? No, it's just the first part.
Thank you.
Okay.
Seconded? Councillor Kemp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So now we'll go through them one at a time. And the first being the carbon fund. And so we just had some interesting input into that. Councillor Javetkov?
So the changes that we made by dropping a level, can we make the adjustments to this policy then to reflect that? Is that going to?
Duncan?
So through your worship, and Peter has done a lot of work in this area, so I'll lean on him a little bit. This fund is really about, some of the goals set in on the path to carbon neutrality, and also ensuring that there's sufficient funding, approximately $390,000 annually, to put towards projects that are going to reduce our emissions. So this policy is really specific around ensuring that we have adequate funding to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. The level 2 and the signatory, I think, is a piece of it, but the biggest piece is around setting aside that funding, Peter?
Yeah, through your worship, the carbon fund was mainly intended to do the accelerating progress under the charter. Right now, the level 2, we're not accelerating progress.
Yeah. So to answer that question, if council would like to look at this fund, and this is not something we want to continue on with, we could refer to staff, either for repealing or amending.
And so I guess looking at 1 and 2 both, the fund and the offset purchasing go hand in hand, and should we not have that brought back to council with a report to make some recommendations for us to consider? Now that we've just saw this reducing to step 2. Councillor Parslow?
Well, my notion with both this policy and the purchasing of offsets was to repeal both of them. Looking at, we've made for this year some cuts that did impact this. I cannot see in the decade ahead of us being able to reinstate these funds. So I think my notion is we repeal them immediately.
Okay.
I'm prepared to make a motion if that's in keeping with where we're at process-wise. That's what.
Yep, I think we need to do that. So if councillor, you're making that by way of a motion?
We repeal this policy, the carbon fund, and the purchasing of carbon offsets in light of our fiscal situation.
Duncan? Before I just get a second, I just want to make sure we're clear on this. So, got a seconder? Councillor Lexstrom, go ahead, Duncan.
So just so I'm clear, that would be Councillor Parslow option B, to refer to staff to prepare a report outlining the pros and cons of repealing the policy? No. You want to actually repeal it?
That's right.
So
I don't need a report for myself. I just know, given our fiscal situation, I don't need the pros and cons. We have to continue with our action we took this year.
Sure. And so the only caveat I would put on is I'm not sure if these policies are referenced in other policies or with plans that we've submitted. I'm not sure. Today I don't have that answer for you.
So we would need to consider that as it impacts other potential policies for us by us repealing it completely, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and that's kind of why we said, direct it back to staff. If this is a priority, then we can do that research and make sure we clear all of it up, knowing where council wants to move to.
Yeah. Okay. So, so the motion we have though is we're repealing, so.
Yeah, so that I would expect admin to do bring back some housekeeping later on if there is any linkages to other policy.
Okay.
That's just normal business.
All right, good. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'll unfortunately going to be voting against Councillor Parslow's motion. As a new councillor, I'd like some more information, so I'd be in favor of option B, getting a report from staff. I understand that funding, capital funding for energy efficiency programs was largely utilized by the energy manager, which is a position which no longer exists. But that doesn't preclude us from, as we work through capital over the next 5 or 10 years, there may be some things which would be served by having some money with an eye towards energy efficiently. Personally, I'd just like some more information before I feel I can make an informed decision.
Thank you. Councillor Javetkov and Councillor Lexton.
So we've already passed a motion that we're using one of those three items, A, B, or C. So aren't we bound to use one of those unless we rescind that motion and make a new motion? So
on the offset, Brenda?
This is the process part of it. Like, we've passed a motion already to use A, B, or C. Now you want to introduce a new motion, so we're not compliant with the first motion. So if we just use B and get a report back, then we'll all be legal and everybody will be happy and the process will continue in its bureaucratic form.
Can I have Brenda speak to you first before Blair?
Through your worship, the A, B, or C were recommendations. It's always up to any councillor to put forward any motion.
And everybody can be happy. Councillor Lexton.
Okay, I guess speaking to the motion, I certainly understand the intent of the discussion, which is with our carbon and our offsetting purchase policy. It appears to me that with the discussions we've had even prior to today, that we're headed towards the dissolution of those policies, would be my read of where we're at. If there's an issue that we have members of council saying, look, I still need a little more information, I'm okay with that. And but the intent, and I think administration hears this loud and clear, is that we want to disband that. It doesn't mean we can't continue to do things that we've learned over the years from having this on. So I would, be supportive of that, and I think the intent of the motion, if I could be so bold as to move an amendment to it, I would move that the motion include that with a direction to discontinue these two policies, administration bring a report back of any unintended consequences that may arise, something like that. By the second,
doesn't go contrary to the motion, Brenda?
No, the motion, the
Just
main intent
repeal.
of the motion was to repeal.
And we're just concerned about any unintended consequences as a piece of that motion. Do I have a seconder for the amendment?
and I'm sure it enhances the existing motion.
Councillor Earl, you second the amendment?
I can live with
That's the way I read it.
And that is only on the first two.
Yes,
of the
that's
three.
right.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Discussion on the amendment. We'll bring back the information on any unintended consequences of repealing the carbon fund and the offset. Ready for the question on the amendment? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. And on the main motion that we repeal, all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. And the third, conference attendance policy. Councillor Javetkov.
So I brought this one forward because it's been bugging me since 1999.
You got to let go.
You know, there's certainly a value to some of these conferences and that type of thing, but I try and relate it to benefits, actual tangible benefits for the taxpayers of Dawson Creek that are paying the bill. And the Union of BC Municipalities at one point, well, I think under two mayors that I served under, we had a policy where we authorized the mayor and two councillors to attend. And I thought that was reasonable. The decision-making process, the resolutions that are brought forward, you know, any that we were interested in, we had people to support them or talk to them, and the aspect of, you know, networking, I think, is mostly applicable to the mayor anyways, or, you know, a designate, so I thought that was reasonable. To have the mayor and all 6 councillors go, it depends where the event is, but it's quite expensive. And if you it's the same with the North Central conferences, and we've already made some changes, I guess, to the FCM. And all of the other sort of the random conferences and workshops that come up, you know, if there's something tangible that is brought back that the taxpayers will benefit from, I can see a benefit, but I think that has to be sort of how we weigh the attendance. And, you know, if we reduce the travel expenses and all the other expenses that are associated, you know, it may be enough to save an FTE or half an FTE, and I think it's significant. And it just shows, you know, some prudence on our part. So I could make a recommendation, but we could have some discussion, I guess, and see.
So let's have a motion that we have this item for discussion. Councillor Javetkov, Councillor Earl, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Lexer.
Thanks, Your Worship. And I will speak in favor of the existing policy as it sits today, which would see council, along with the mayor, council members, and the mayor be able to attend the Union of British Columbia Municipalities. I have participated in that. I believe it's worthwhile for the taxpayers of this city. When we go down there, we deal with the resolutions issue. It is a choice of each councillor and the mayor as to how long they attend each conference, whether it's a 5-day conference, they can choose to be there for 2 days, 3 days. I wholeheartedly agree with the change we made earlier in the year with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I think it is important for our mayor or a designate to be there to represent the city. I'm not sure we need all 6 there, and that was spoke about at the time. The North Central Local Government Association, we've just attended that. I think it is worthwhile and can always be improved upon without question. But part of what we do as city councilors is represent your city at these conferences based on the votes that will take place, the resolutions that come forward, the amount of information that's shared. So I see this differently than Councillor Javetkov, and have since 1999. So I just wanted to say, although everything we do is taxpayers' dollars, and I think we are very responsible in our deliberations when it comes to that. There's no question that we're going to have to continue to be vigilant on how we spend it, but I think these conferences are worthwhile for the ability of council members to attend.
Thank you. Further discussion? Further comments? Councillor Javetkov?
Just to reiterate, you know, I mean, it's conceivable that we could save $50,000 a year, and it's significant. I mean, if we don't save it here, then we will be hitting a different area, and it could be an area that affects the taxpayers a lot more. You know, this process that we're going through, I mean, we've set some goals, and they're pretty significant amounts of money that we're looking at, and you know, this is an area that I don't think, you know, when you look at what we call services to the taxpayers, I don't consider this a service. Like, they're not getting, you know, you could go and ask any taxpayer downtown here what they thought about the service of us attending UBCM. I don't think you'd get a positive response. So that's my view on it. I think there's room here to cut back. We're in cutting mode. We've already identified it. We've cut 1.3 million for this fiscal year, and I think there's room here.
Thank you. Further discussion? Further comment?
So,
sorry, Councillor Parslow.
Yes, well, a great believer in learning, in education, getting information. I'm a strong believer that our staff should have the opportunity of keeping up to date and being part of discussions with their counterparts, whether they be senior staff or not senior staff, and I expect the same for elected officials. We have a role to do our best for our community, you never know from some of these conferences what you're going to learn. I think I learned a lot at the intergovernment meeting at Wembley at the Paleontology Museum that was just held. I learned a lot of things. So I'm a great believer in networking for all the people in the employ of the city and the elected officials. I think we have to be sometimes careful, have a close look at the agenda for some of the meetings. But UBCM, I can't see, you need a fair number of people there to cover that conference. You know the series of meetings of our advocacy for our community that takes place is a pretty major part of that conference. So I'm with the status quo at the moment.
Councillor Earl?
I just, I sympathize with Councillor Javetkoff's sentiment. I've gone to a couple conferences now, and Councillor Parslow's point is certainly as I grow in this job, I'll probably be more, look towards these events and travel with a more critical eye towards the content. Having said that, I do think ultimately with respect to this particular expenditure, we as elected representatives have the responsibility to make sure we're justifying that to our constituents as every year our expenses are released to the public, and that's our opportunity to make that statement about where we think the value lies and what the value is for the taxpayer. So I'll keep the status quo for now. And having said that, I've been to all of 2 conferences in my time here, so I didn't really care much in '99 about it.
Councillor Lekstrom and Councillor Javetkoff?
At this time, Your Worship, I would move that Council reaffirm its policy on conference attendance for Council.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Parslow. Councillor Javetkoff?
I don't have anything to add.
You're gonna go keep that tucked away. I'm gonna speak in favor of the policy because for me, the benefits of the conferences are more than the plenary sessions. They're more than the information, the opportunity to network with peers. This week at NCLGA, I probably had 4 or 5 different sessions with industry folks and business folks. I sat in on at a presentation. I sat at they have a trade show always with the booths. RICO, where they're doing a presentation on new technology. And to me, that was an opportunity to kind of learn about the new technology that's coming for offices and meeting space and things like that. So there's, and then you always have 3 or 4 different meetings that people schedule around the conferences. And so we met with Northern Health, and we had the Northern Medical Programs, and we had a meeting with Northern Health Connections. And so there's all kinds of those other things that go on within the conference itself that other organizations take the benefit of. I had 4 different meetings with industry folks, TransCanada, and Pembina, and Verizon, and Enbridge. And so there's all those things that go on in the conference that all benefit, I think, the taxpayers of us in being effective in this role that we have. So I'm also a favor of NCLGA and UBCM for these elected officials to be able to go and represent our community. That's all I have to say about that right now. Further discussion, further comments? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Councillor Javetkoff opposed. Thank you for that. 7.3, we have report 19069 from the Development Services Manager regarding a temporary use permit for 1125 102nd Avenue, the old Asphalts building. Councillor Javetkoff?
I just got a question about it, about the recommendation. It's got car wash included in there. Is there an intent there to put a car wash in that?
Wayne and Aaron are looking to detail, so that fits within the, Wayne from Bannister and Aaron from Browns are going to use that facility as a location to detail their own vehicle, so I think they have to describe it as a car wash, but I'll let staff speak to that.
Describe it as a detail, vehicle detail.
Administration?
To Your Worship, Peter, their intent is that detailing secondary to the rental and maybe detailing from the other dealerships?
Yeah, I think their intent, through your worship, is to bring the cars in, they come in dusty, they have to be washed in detail, so the detail is accessory use to the wash, which is an accessory to the whole function of what they want to do there.
Would it permit a car wash if that's what they wanted, standalone?
It would, the site already has some car wash wands, which
Okay.
they don't plan to add to that at all, it's just repurposing the existing facility to allow their dealers' vehicles to come in, be cleaned up. It's typically the used cars when they get them.
Councillor Lexton?
It just bothers me that, I guess that we could see a car wash there, like, I don't know if a car wash is appropriate there. That would have to be another discussion to me. So I guess that's what bothered me. If there was a better definition of what they're actually doing, or if it opens up, it's like, you know, you're sort of inadvertently approving something that you didn't really intend on.
That's really I think, so you see in this stuff is the dilemma of specific wording that has to be included in the permitted uses within our zoning wording. And if you don't, I've had some discussions with owners here that it's really crazy to me when I think about it that has to be worded in such a way, and if it doesn't, it excludes the use. So I guess that's part of the planning stuff. Duncan?
So to your worship, and I know we haven't made a motion yet, our zoning bylaw is pretty prescriptive, and so we need to do some work. This was a legally non-conforming because it was permitted to have a showroom but not sell cars, is that correct? So it's clunky, we need to fix that. We're working on it right now, we recognize that. We recognize this has been there 60 odd years or 70 years, and the OCP doesn't really reflect that that's a good location for it, so we have some work to do. This is working with the applicant and trying to move forward their aspirations, which are very similar to what's been happening there for many years.
Councillor Lexton?
I guess, and that helps answer where I was going to head with my questions through to Duncan. A temporary use permit for 3 years hopefully will allow us the time to get this corrected, because we've had an operation there for 60 years or better, and I'm quite confident they washed cars, detailed cars in this facility for all 60 of those years. So we're making something here, I think, probably broader than it has to be, but what I've just heard you say is we're going to evaluate our zoning, see if we can't fine tune it so that we wouldn't have to deal with a temporary use on something like this. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. And because it was vacant for 6 months, that grandfather kind of fell away, right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion? Councillor Parslow?
I'd like to move the report 19069 from the city planner, a temporary use permit 19-01 be received. Further, that TUP 1901 be approved to permit vehicle rental and car wash uses at 1101, 1105, 1109, 1113 and 1125 102nd Avenue for a period of 3 years.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Kemp. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.5, we have report 19074 from the utilities manager regarding an invitation to tender for the Capital Works program on 112th Avenue.
You went to
Councillor
7.5?
Javetkov? Oh, I'm sorry. I missed 7.4. My apologies. Report 19071 from the development services manager regarding our request for quotations for lot cleaning and cutting and cleanup. Councillor Javetkov?
I was going to read the right one anyways.
Thank you for helping me out there.
Move that report number 19-071 from the Development Services Manager, request for quotations 2019-13 lot cutting and cleanup be received. Further, that councillor award the request for quote 2019-13 lot cutting and cleanup to Big Fish Ventures for a 3-year term commencing June 1st, 2019 and ending May 31st, 2021 at the following amounts. Average lot, $100 per lot plus taxes. Acre lot, $150 per acre plus taxes. And cleanup, $188 per hour plus taxes.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Kemp. Discussion? Councillor Lexton?
Just a quick one through to administration. I know you're recommending Big Fish Ventures based on history, and I think that's good. The $180 on the cleanup is significantly different than the other three. So the balance we see is made up in the first 2 hourly rates, because the cleanup, I'm not sure if somebody could just explain, is that every lot, I'm sure, doesn't need a full cleanup with it, but a cutting.
So through your worship, we have, in the last 3 years, just recently done our first cleanup required. And this is on private property and usually billed back to the homeowner at no cost to the city. So we don't have a lot of history of having to do this. And in addition to that, it's billed back and a bit of an incentive for people to look after their own lots as opposed to the city coming in and doing it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 7.5, we have report 19074 from the Utilities Manager regarding our invitation to tender for the Capital Works program on 112th Avenue reconstruction. Councillor Parslow.
Move the report 19074 from the Utilities Manager, request for quotations 2019-08 2019 Capital Roadworks Program, 112th Avenue reconstruction be received. Further, the Council award RFQ 2019-08 to Bear Mountain Construction Limited for the contract price of $2,396,145.83, excluding taxes.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Javetkov. Discussion? Councillor Lexton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question through the administration. Significant differences between the lowest and the highest bid here. What do we have as penalty clauses within these contracts based on non-finish, based on the time they have to finish? And this happens, you know, on different occasions that I've seen. Somebody will bid something, it isn't completed in the time frame that we expect it. Do we apply a penalty clause? Can you just update me on how that works? Because sometimes the higher bid may complete it in the time frame. I look forward to hearing.
Duncan?
So through your worship, we didn't have a penalty clause, and I believe we introduced one here within a year or so ago. Devin?
MMCD contracts will have a liquidated damages clause, which is fairly standard across the province. Generally, it's anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 a day, depending on the type of contract. I can't speak specifically to what the clause, what the penalty is on these, but there are liquidated damages. This particular contractor is aware of these.
So liquidated damage is one thing. If we're having we'll just say a September 30th deadline to meet, for example.
Yeah.
And September 30th comes, and that project is not done, and they have to carry on, then it's unfair to the bidders that we didn't give it to, who may have ramped up their bid to meet that date. So $1,500, $3,000 a day is minimal, in my mind. I'd take the hit if that was the case. So I just want to ensure that we don't get ourselves, this has gone on for years, not just, it happens everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people will bid a contract and then do additions to it, and additions to it, and additions to it. This is a fixed price contract, I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to make sure that we're vigilant on our dates, that if they don't meet them, that, you know, we aren't penalizing somebody who bid higher because they were going to ramp up to meet the deadline we've set. So
Okay.
it's more of a comment.
Good. Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.6, we have report 19075 from the Utilities Manager regarding the invitation to tender the Capital Works program for 102nd Avenue sidewalk, curb and gutter. Councillor Earl.
I'll move that report number 19-075 from the Utilities Manager regarding invitation to tender 2019-09 Capital Roadworks Program, 102nd Avenue sidewalk, curb and gutter be received. Further, that Council award RFQ 2019-09 to Peters Bros Construction Limited for the contract price of $455,017.47, excluding taxes.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Parslow, discussion? Comments? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.7, we have report 19076 from the Utilities Manager regarding the invitation to tender the Capital Works program for the 10th Street sidewalk addition. Councillor Kemp?
I'll move that report number 19-076 from the Utilities Manager regarding invitation to tender 2019-10 Capital Roadworks Program 10th Street Sidewalk Addition to be received. Further, the council award the RFQ 2019-10 to Peter Brothers Construction LT for the contract price of $276,487.71 excluding taxes.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Earl, discussion. Councillor Lexstrom?
A quick question through to administration on our third bid rejected non-compliant. Is there a reason, or could you share with us what they didn't meet, or?
So through your worship, I believe they just bid on a portion of the project, not the entire?
There was some documents missing in the tender, and also they bid on, they didn't put any prices in for some optional prices. The way that our tender is written, if those optional prices or those things that were omitted are more than 1% of the tender price, it's deemed materially affecting the tender price and they need to be reviewed.
Thank you. Further discussion, further questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.8, report 7.8, sorry, item 7.8, report 19077 from the Utilities Manager, invitation to tender 2019 Capital Works Program 13th Street Sidewalk Curb and Gutter. Councillor Earl?
I'll move that report number 19-077 from the Utilities Manager regarding invitation to tender 2019-11 Capital Roadworks Program 13A Street Sidewalk Curb and Gutter be received. Further, that council award RFQ 2019-11 to Peters Bros Construction Limited for the contract price of $221,614.57 excluding taxes.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Kemp, discussion? All those in favor? Oh, sorry. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. I thought you were having a question. 7.9, we have report 19079 from the corporate officer regarding request for proposals 2019 for our website and video services. Councillor Parslow.
I move the report 19079 from the corporate officer, request for proposals 2019-16 website and video services be received. Further, that staff be authorized to enter into a 3-year agreement commencing June the 1st, 2019 with New Harvest Media Inc. for website and video services at a rate of $1,375 a month plus tax, and that the rate for additional services be set at $95 an hour plus tax. Further, that this agreement include an option to renew a total of 2 times, and further that staff be authorized to sign any renewal upon the same terms and conditions.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Javetkov, discussion? Councillor Lexton.
Just a quick question through your worship to administration. So the tender on the month is, and then $95 an hour following that. How many hours a month do they give us for the $1,300 plus?
Through your worship, that's 5 hours.
So then, would we not be better just to go at $95 an hour for everything? Because I see it at $270 an hour for the monthly contract, and then they do the rest for 95. Am I misreading that?
Through your worship, that provides them with a minimum hours per month, the 5 hours. They bill as used, so any hours banked up towards the end of the year we could use for a special project or upgrading. Does that answer your question?
I must be confused. I see it $1,375 a month is what they're doing. So if they utilize the 5 hours, then we'll pay them $95 an hour for work beyond the 5 hours. So we're paying $270 for the first 5 hours and then 95. Have I misread that? That's the part I'm confused on.
It's $475 a month for the website services and $900 a month for the video.
When they're here doing the video,
so there's
our council meeting. Duncan?
So through your worship, they're different services. Website design can be completed from their office. They can work on their website maintenance, etc. And then we have video services where they have staff and video. They convert that onto the website. It's more work. It's a different rate. Does that answer your question?
Okay, I guess then it's more than 5 hours a month for $1,375 is
Oh,
what
yeah.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct, sorry, yes,
Yeah.
the website service is the 5 hours a month,
Okay,
plus the video services,
thank
which
you.
is additional.
All right.
Councillor Earl?
Just a quick question. The City of Dawson Creek's app, is this support included in that, or is that a different ball of wax altogether?
That is a different
Okay.
cost.
Councillor Parslow?
I was going to draw my colleague's attention to the paragraph on the bottom of page, I think it's page 1, about the website and stuff, but Brenda outlined that to Blair, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further discussion? Great service. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. And 710, we have report 19073 from the administrative assistant regarding Crescent Park and Fred Flavel Memorial Park survey results. That we had Councillor Javetkov.
I'll move for discussion.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Lekstrom. All in favor? Opposed, carried. Duncan, do you have any?
Sure, through your worship, I can just do a quick summary. So, a proposal was made to council. Council wanted to consider it, and as part of that consideration was a session with the public at the park, well attended. I think overall we received 56 surveys, although some questions weren't all filled out, and the survey results have been summarized. And the only other piece was the proposal was through a volunteer group at no cost to the city.
Councillor Javetkov?
Yeah, it was my proposal, so I did attend the meeting. And I talked to almost everybody that was there, and you know, the intent of the proposal was to create a bit of a forest there. And talking to the people who lived around there, there's a couple of them that agreed with me. A couple of them would like to see the whole thing planted to trees. But most of them preferred not to have anything there. Although, they were willing to have, a couple rows of trees on the side there, but I think that, sort of is different than the intent. And, I don't mean to try and impose anything on them. I thought this was another way to maybe reduce costs, operational costs to the city. But, it's obvious that the people are using their park and they're protective of it. So, to me, I think it's something it's just a non-starter.
Councillor Lekstrom?
Just a quick question. Thanks to administration for the work. Paul, thanks for your work on this. I mean, you always do a great deal for our city, and this one to go out and talk to people about it, I think it was certainly a good engagement out there. To administration, on the responses we received, were they all signed? Or do we have anonymous ones come in? And if we have anonymous ones come in, do we consider them?
I would have to speak. Go ahead, Brenda.
Yeah, through your worship, I believe all of them required an address
Mhm.
before they could be submitted.
Terrific, thank you.
Yeah, and so just to build off that, through your worship, in discussion with Melissa, there were maybe 2, I believe, that were a little farther than, say, 89th or 90th Ave. The majority were from within that catchment.
And just to be clear, whether you live in the region or anywhere in the city, I think you have every opportunity. These are all of our parks, but I just wanted to check. Sometimes people will put their thoughts down without putting their name down, which doesn't count in my books.
Councillor Parslow?
Well, results, when you engage people like this, you can guarantee that status quo will be the dominant theme back. Was the cost savings issue really clearly presented, and what area of forest area would be required for there to be a substantial savings in maintenance?
Councillor Javetkov?
People asked about the cost savings. They were wondering if it was significant. And I don't know what the cost savings would be, but I indicated maybe 10 or 20,000 a year. But I think it was part of a bigger project. I think when we talked about it originally, It was looking at all of our 36 parks and identifying areas that could be converted to a no-mow zone. So, you know, overall, you'd have to look at the cost of the entire, you know, initiative. But for this one, I mean, whether it's 10,000 a year or whatever, it's, I don't know what it would be. You know, and costs are, you can calculate them differently. I mean, you know, it's like they talk about statistics. The cost of actually performing the cutting while you're there is one thing, but the cost of the preparation, the administration, the overhead, the owning the equipment to do it, having the staff there that are occupied in other ways because they're there. There's a lot of variables to determining what the costs are. People tend to look at, well, you know, I can run my lawnmower down there and, you know, it would take an hour. That's not the, you know, reflective of the real costs. So we talked about it, people were concerned about it, and the number I threw out was, you know, 10 or 20,000 a year, something like that.
Thank you.
The
So,
reason for,
go ahead.
the reason for asking is that, you know, I enjoy the Mustacepi Park in Grand Prairie. It's very well used. Large, I don't know percentage-wise, but most of it is heavily treed. There are a couple of areas where it's grass, but I mean, as a looking long-term, looking at efficiencies and budget costs, I think we need to see some of, nearly all of our parks have a bit of a balanced usage rather than just being primarily grass, right? Being primarily treed, but with it's still available for recreational use. So maybe just picking one part was a wrong strategy. We needed to have a bigger citywide strategy that would see significant dollars saved. It's just a reflection on, I mean, what Blair said, I agree, it's a great idea, but maybe it needed to be in a context of a citywide.
Lepke Park's a great example of, I think, a no-mow zone park that's well used. It's got that forest park bill to it that was planned and planted with specific types and trees, and it's amazing. And so I think that, to me, is part of that long-term strategy that maybe we have to consider for some of those parks to get that impact on our costs. So, motion?
Receive for information.
Second? Councillor Parslow, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, and thank you, Paul, for that, as Blair said. So let's take a 7-minute break, and as we'll move back in is item 8, our bylaws. 8.1, we have report 19070 from the Development Services Manager regarding our OCP amendment bylaw 4418 and zoning amendment bylaw 4419 for South Peace Health Society for the property at 1225 113th Avenue. Councillor Parslow.
I move that report 19070 from the City Planner, the official Community Plan Amendment 19-02, bylaw number 4418, 2019, and zoning amendment 19-03, bylaw number 4419, 2019 being received. Further, that the official Community Plan Amendment 1902, bylaw number 4418, 2019, and zoning amendment 1903, bylaw number 4419, 2019 be given first and second readings. Further, the Council confirms that it is considered official Community Plan Amendment 19-02, bylaw number 4418, 2019, in conjunction with the financial plan. And further, that official Community Plan Amendment bylaw number 1902, number 4418, 2019, be referred to the Peace River Regional District prior to consultation and public hearing.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Lexstrom. Discussion? I'll speak to it because Councillor Wilbur is away today, and she's really been the lead on the South Peace Health Society. For those that aren't familiar with it, the South Peace Health Society was formed a year or so ago as a partnership with Tumbler Ridge, Chetwynd, Pootscoopie, Dawson Creek, and our rural areas, our rural neighbors, in an effort to collaboratively, proactively support health services. This purchase of the Bolter-Ice Clinic, now the Bolter-Ice Patient Accommodation House, was through the society. And it's, as described under our definitions as perhaps a rooming house, it's going to be a patient accommodation home for residents from our region, northeastern British Columbia, who come to Dawson Creek for maternity services, orthopedic services, oncology services, acute care services. Then they would have a place to stay while they're here without having to stay in a hotel. And so this is a partnership for all of us that we're involved in, a part of, and funded primarily through the Peace River Regional District for the society in order to move this forward. And it's very positive in terms of a move to help us build and solidify those health services, and we really appreciate the work that the Southeast Health Society have done in moving this forward. So just for a little background. Any further discussion or comments from council? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And mayor's business. So I'll get through this as quickly as possible. So we had the Dawson Creek and District Hospital Capital Advisory Committee met, and they've started the process of planning for the new hospital. It is a new hospital. It's not going to be a phased construction, is the plan right now. It'll be built on the corner of 10th Street and 113th Avenue in the parking lot area is the initial plan and design. It'll be fully new. It won't be stage 1, 2, or 3 as was originally anticipated. So that project planning is underway, and council met with Northern Health at the NCLGA, had a bit of a discussion with Kathy Ulrich, the CEO of Northern Health, about it, and they're very engaged in it. We expect the business plan will be completed this fall and go to Treasury Board for the approval of the financing, and if that's the case, we'll see it start to hopefully move forward into engineering and procurement tendering for the project next year in 2020, and then probably a 3-year project. But anyway, we're on the Capital Advisory Committee planning process with Northern Health, and actually I suggested to them at the time that it would be worthwhile for our South Peace Health Society to be engaged in that, and so they're going to extend the invitation through to Shirley to be on that as well. Any questions? Councillor Lecter?
You know what, Your Worship, just a thank you to yourself and Shaylee and the people that have worked on this. I think a lot of people in our city aren't aware of the magnitude of the redevelopment. Originally, it was an inpatient wing that had been worked on for the better part of a decade, I think. At this point, with the commitment from Northern Health, in reviewing, I guess, really the economics of it and the need, it was determined that a whole new hospital would be money better spent than an inpatient wing. So I think much of our population doesn't recognize this announcement or the importance of this. So really just to reaffirm that this is an amazing opportunity for our city. A new hospital is in the works, and I've had people ask me what is happening with the hospital, but this is very good news. We had a great meeting with Kathy and the Northern Health Authority, so positive news, and thank you to the many people over the past decade probably that have worked towards this.
Absolutely. No, it's very good. We're so excited about seeing this move forward. I attended the Encana Community Information Center session at Pootscoopie 2 weeks ago, and just a real good opportunity to see the plans for Encana in terms of as they're moving forward with their development in the region, and important to our community and important to our region as part of that economic components of our service sector and the importance of that development to our region. I got invited to a grades 1 and 2 class at Tremblay Elementary week before last, and so I'm going to tell a little story because it's kind of the grade 1 and 2 children in their minds, and so I always usually make one statement to the kids, no matter what the age, and the importance of why I'm there is for them to be able to go home with something at the end of the night to mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, auntie, and uncle about what they learned today, and it was the importance of voting. And so I always premise that from the perspective of we wear that poppy on November 11th to give us the opportunity of remembering and paying special tribute to those veterans who gave their lives in some cases for us to have freedom, democracy, and the right to vote. And so make sure they go home and tell mommy and daddy, grandma and grandpa, how important it is to vote. And then I always, when I'm invited, ask the teachers to make sure each of the children have a question to ask, and it makes it engaging. So we do this session, and I'm going around the room asking the questions, and then finally one little guy puts up his hand, and the teacher said, well, you've already asked a question, Austin. He said, well, I have another one. I said, did we win the war? I said, yeah, we did pretty good. It was so good. Did we win? So anyway, it was a very good day, and I appreciate Ms. McKenzie's invitation to Trombley Grade 1 and 2. Last Monday, we had the official launch of the World Junior A Challenge ticket and sponsorship event and rollout, and paid some attention at the Co-op Mercer Hall with the Canada Event Centre staff and Hockey Canada and a bunch of our sponsors, and the opportunity to give them their jersey and with a name on it from Lakeview Credit Union and the Friends at Saddle Hills and Canada and
Regional District.
Regional PRRD, obviously, and on and on. So it was really good, and the tickets are rolling out, and really good job to Ryan and Barry and all the folks who are putting that on, and it's going to have a great week or 10 days of activity in our community again on December 7th to 13th. As was discussed earlier, I attended the North Central Local Government Association meeting last week for part of it, and the Northern Medical Programs Trust annual general meeting was held at the same time, which is the medical trust that was established by all of the communities in northeastern British Columbia. I think by a few that didn't join, but we all put some seed money into that trust a number of years ago, and now it's grown to, I can't remember the last amount, but I think they give out $200,000 or $300,000 a year to medical students in partnership with the University of Northern BC, Northern Medical Program, and it's really been a very effective model for us to work collaboratively as a region in Northern British Columbia as part of the North Central Local Government Association organization to support this health benefit trust. I also attended I got asked to sit on an advisory committee with Northern Health on their connection service, the bus service, the transportation service that they offer, and looking for input into that service that they provide and from the community level. So myself and Jerry Thiessen from the West are on the committee, and we're looking for another representative, I think, from the Interior. And so it's really good information and some good data. And the big change last year when Greyhound dropped is Northern Connections allowed travel for seniors 60 and over on the service without medical needs, and they're really seeing a growth in the passenger loads. And I think they said Prince George to Vancouver, which is a core route for people from Fort St. John, Dawson, Prince George, and then connecting into Prince to Vancouver, they're up at 75–80% capacity now. So it's really been growing, and a really valuable service in terms of how well utilized it is. So I was at that meeting, and as was mentioned earlier, we had the Northern Health meeting. Talked to a number of industry folks at the session. Enbridge got some real exciting stuff that they've got coming, and some capital stuff announced. TransCanada staff as well, they got some projects underway. So anyway, it was very worthwhile, and I unfortunately only made it for a day, but it was good for the day I was there. I got invited on Monday before I left for a little guy, Hayden Fontaine, and Hayden's got osteogenesis imperfecta, and that's a disease that breaks down your bones, and we all have that. The bones then build up, his don't build up. Little Hayden's 5 or 6 years old. He's broke probably his legs 5 or 6 times, shoulders, banged his face on a rod, broke all the bones in his face, and it was called the Wishbone Day on Monday, and I attended because Hayden and I've known their family for a long time, and just to raise the awareness of how important it is for that 1 in 10,000 people. I think they figure there's about 1,900 people in Canada have OI, and just a real important awareness day that Mum and the staff did to try to raise the awareness of how important it is to be careful around little Hayden. You can't push him going down the stairs because it could be significant, and he broke his leg one time jumping off the couch. So he's a special little guy, and I was really happy to be there for OI Day for Hayden. The other item we had today was the Rotary walking path, and the fellows had asked us if we would be willing to engage in some discussion with them and bring some back options for some of that idea that they have for that area. And I think we're looking for a motion to allow administration and perhaps the mayor, or if one of council want to do that, to meet with the Rotary and perhaps explore options for that specific area. So I wouldn't mind a motion to direct us to do that. Councillor Kemp? Thank you. Second to Councillor Earl. Any discussion on that for council?
If you need help at all, I can meet with them.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you. Duncan, and we'll just arrange to meet with them. And
Yep.
safety, I think, is that one issue that was raised, was probably one we don't want to have somebody get injured on it. So. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. And item 9.2, I had a recall from, oh, sorry, Brenda?
There was also the request to fly the Norwegian
Oh,
flag.
right. At the Peace Park. So we need a motion that we would fly the Norwegian flag on Peace Park. Councillor Parsel, second. Councillor Kemp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 9.2 is a request to waive July and August drop-in fees at the Kemborg Aquatic Center, and I received a call from Beresin, who participated last year when we waived the fees at the Encana Event Center, or the Kemborg Aquatic Center, for swimming for youth, family, and seniors for the months of July and August, and council did that, and then Beresin loved the idea of it, so they gave us $10,000, and the RD guys give us some money, and we collected a little bit other, and I think we raised about $15,000 or $16,000. So Beresin have reached out, and they're really interested in sponsoring this again this year for $10,000. Talked to the RD guys, and they were asking for a letter because they're interested in considering it again. And I've talked to some local business folks about the idea and concept, and people really like the idea of it. And so my request at this time is if council would consider a motion that we consider that for July and August of this year again, that we waive the fees at the Kemborg Aquatic Center for the month of July and August for families, children, and seniors. And that represents our traditional model of fees that we would collect for those 2 months is around $40,000 to $42,000 in the summer month. Adults are about half of that money, about 20 to 21, and the other fees that we're suggesting waive would be about 20. I think we've got most of that almost covered, but as Councillor Javekov had raised, legitimately so, we do have additional costs because we're bringing in more staff and things like that. But this is a way, from my view, that we are able to then we really jacked up the users and the number of people who were able to take advantage of it, the single moms, underprivileged, and things like that. That our use of the pool went way up. So it's my request today that we would consider that.
Are you moving the motion, Your Worship, or?
I'd like to come from the floor if I can.
Okay. I would so move that the city of, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I would move that the city of Dawson Creek waive drop-in swim fees for youth, family, and senior categories for the months of July and August 2019. Further, that any donations received from community groups and/or individuals be directed to offset the cost of the sponsorship at the Kemborg Aquatic Center.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Kemp. Discussion. Councillor Lexton.
Your Worship, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this came as a result of the dealings we're having with Rotary Lake, I think was the initial
Last year.
concept.
Yep.
And a worthy one. But I do want to state that the issue of Rotary Lake is ongoing. It is hopefully my intent, and I think shared by the members of this council, to try and find a solution to the issue that we face out there and get that back in operation, where I'm not sure we're going to be successful in having it open this summer. I'm always an optimist, but I have some concerns with the way that Northern Health has moved forward on this. I think we have done a number of good things for that lake to be able to reopen and put it back in operation. So it's my hope that the future will see that facility back up and operating for the benefit of the region.
Yeah, and I agree. To me, this is I think a very well used program last year that provided a service in the community for folks. But it's separate to me from this. Isn't a replacement of the Rotary Light.
Exactly.
Further discussion, Councillor Parsel.
So I'd like to know what's the net cost, extra cost after you looked at all the donations that the mayor's cited, there are increased costs. So what's the net extra cost, approximately, within
Yeah.
$5,000, $10,000?
So through your worship, I don't have the net. Was 2 months, and it shifted a little bit. 1 month was one group, and then we opened it up in the second group. But really, it comes down to some additional staff and some additional chemical. Our staff ratios are about 1 to 50, so there is an additional cost. I don't have that number for you right now. It did fit within the budget. Yeah, last year we didn't go over in the budget, but I can't tell you exactly what that number is.
And certainly it'll be my expectation that we're going to receive the donations up to hopefully around that, for sure in that 15 to 20 grand range, and cover off the majority of what where normal fees and charges would have been. I'm going to go to work on trying to cover that 20 off. Further discussion? Further questions? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. So we have now, I guess we can finish off diary.
Nothing to update, your worship.
Thank you. And consent calendar. Couple of letters. Motion to receive. Councillor Earl, Councillor Parslow. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Sorry, was there any, I should have asked this, was there any comments or questions on anybody on the consent from anything? Strategic priorities.
Nothing to update, your worship.
Media. So we now have a motion to recess to close, please. Councillor Kemp, Councillor Earl, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So we'll have 2 minutes and we'll have our close.